We pause to reflect on the importance of Juneteenth. Tomorrow will mark the day in 1865 when news reached the far west corner of Texas, finally freeing enslaved African Americans in that state by executive decree. Reginald Dwayne Betts, a poet, lawyer, activist, and founder of Freedom Reads, which has built hundreds of libraries and prisons all across the country, says he's always been safe between the pages of a book. And that is now true about a book that he wrote the introduction for. It is called Crazy as Hell, the best little guidebook to Black history. And Reginald Dwayne Betts joins me now. Welcome back to the Rush Hour.
It's my pleasure to be here.
We love having you on. And this is
I love being on.
This is such a great occasion to celebrate this book. I found it fascinating. I want to start with a quote from what you wrote in that introduction. You say, one way to think of all this is how crazy as hell it is to be Black in this country, even today, and figure out who you are. How does this book help in that discovery?
It's funny because I've read myself saying I've always been safe in between the pages of a book, which is not necessarily true. I've been safe in a physical sense, but I think I've always been challenged. I think I've always had to figure out what it means to be alive, what it means to be who I want to be. And that's even more so true for this book, because to figure out who I wanted to be in prison, it forced me to learn about way more people than I had confronted at 16 years old. And it forced me to do it, I think, in a way that opened up the whole landscape of human emotions. Most of the time when you get information, it's always like, you know, there's no variation, there's no humor, there's no sadness, there's no tragedy. It's only the one note that you get. With that book, you get every note, even in one story. And it equips you because it reminds you that being alive means you have to suffer like everybody else, but you also get to touch some joy and you get to touch some honesty.
Talk about this notion of crazy as hell. I mean, the book's described as a rebuttal to a one-dimensional narrative of African American history. Why this phrase, crazy as hell, which repeats itself throughout this book?
Because it literally is like the Black idiom. It is what it means to understand why we code switched, but also why it's not code switching. It's really moving along different dictions. So I could say, your boss said what? Oh man, that's crazy as hell. Or like, did you see what Jordan did last night? Yo, that is crazy as hell. And literally the phrase encompasses, in a real sense, the entire bandwidth of experience. It could be noun, adjective, adverb, and in this sense, it becomes a descriptor. What are those things that happen, that exist at the margins, that help us understand the center of the Black experience? And so some of the figures, we won't meet a Malcolm X, a Martin Luther King Jr. in our lifetime. We won't meet so many of the figures that get discussed, but the ways in which they had this lingering effect on what it means to be American persist across the entire culture.
And those are among the 100 famous and infamous people and phrases that are in this book, and they're put into different categories. How were those 100 selected? What do they try to convey? Because they're all so different. Yeah,
so the writers, and I get one of these extreme privileges of being like the person that wrote the introduction, but I'm kind of like the co-pilot. You know, I didn't actually have to drive the airplane. So the pilots actually were Hokie Glover III and Dr. Afua Prince. And what they did was just spent a long gestation period having conversations about what is it that's crazy as hell? How do you distinguish this person from that person? But this is like the ultimate barbershop, cocktail party, let's talk among friends conversation. Because the first question is, who is here that shouldn't be here? And who should be here that's not here?
You know, it's very interesting. When I look at some of the names, Muhammad Ali, Clarence Thomas, Kanye West, and then they're divided into these categories, the outlaw, the spiritualist. What I love about it is each person gets basically one page or half a page. Then there's further reading recommended if you want it.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about what they write about you, because I find that to be, and I'd love to have your opinion on it. They say, most recognized for his poetry, Betts would find himself to be a master orator and highly recognized literary genius. His accomplishments and accolades would be considered astounding, as he would be viewed as a true visionary, carrying his generation. Fool raised $20 million to deliver to the place where he experienced so many nightmares, referring to the many years that you spent behind bars and are now building these libraries.
Yes, it's interesting because one, I think I think everything said about everybody is humbling, but I think the thing said about me is most humbling because the way I got into the book was just slipped into under the cover of darkness. I was just like so deeply frustrated that I put a fake bio of myself. Now, all of those things are true, but do I think that I'm a, you know what's the most challenging thing to be alive in this world, and this is the most crazy as hell thing, is it is easy for me to say I'm a convicted felon. It is easy for me to say that I might have ruined my life, my family's life. I made it possible for my little cousin to go to prison at 13 for murder. It's easy for me to admit all of those things, but it's near impossible to admit that I've done anything in this world that warrants being called a visionary, even though I've raised, $20 million to bring books and libraries into prison. And what's crazy as hell is that we live in a country where going from prison, from the penitentiary to Yale is possible. But what's even more crazy as hell is you could do that and still wonder if you're worthy.
Yeah, but you should look no further than to the poem that your son wrote you on Father's Day, which is the perfect segue, because I want people to hear part of that poem, and then you won't be raising that question anymore. So to close out the show, Reginald Dwayne Betts, please read part of this poem written to you by your son.
This is a section of What My Father's Made Of by Mekhi Betts. My father is made of stories, one half of the whole, the most important story he's yet to finish. There are no dry bones here. No, my father's bones are made of stories fortified with love, convincing me someday he will soar.
Dwayne Betts, thank you for joining us on The Rush Hour.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. For more stories in your communities, click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV for the latest news and weather updates every 10 minutes and more. We'll see you then.